Oh, would you look at that? Propane and propane accessories are on sale. And the local butcher has some A5 Wagyu in stock. Oh man, this is going to be a great relaxing day. Got my supplies, got my bourbon, my cigars, my dog. I'm just going to be able to sit back all day and
has owned slaves.
Oh God, no. No, not again. Not again. I already did this. My subscribers are going to think I'm not creative. Please, I'm so tired. I just want to grill.
Nobody alive has owned slaves.
Correct you are. You made a basic observation and a bad faith attempt to end the discussion. Nobody alive in the United States has owned slaves, not counting the very real slave labor taking place in for-profit prisons across the country that is literally codified in the 13th Amendment. But here's the thing. You're rebutting an argument that nobody is making. The argument isn't that there are still slave owners who must get their comeuppance. It's more like, even though chattel slavery ended, the effects of it on generational wealth, educational opportunities, and public perception of the black community hasn't.
Slavery ended years ago.
Man, you're a dense one. Won't give it up, huh? Well, accepting the fact that the 400 years of chattel slavery did in fact end in the 1800s, this was followed up by Jim Crow. Jim Crow existed until the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s, which both of my still living parents were alive for and vividly recall. MLK went to Morehouse College in 1944, which at the time was the only college on the planet for black men. This isn't some ancient history. Do you believe that a massive societal ill like systemic racism would just vanish in 2 generations without serious and focused efforts at the institutional level?
Why should I be punished?
Yeah, kind of saw that one coming. It almost inevitably pops up in the reparations discussion. Here's the thing. Have you ever asked yourself why you feel that your tax dollar is going to help a sizable portion of the population who's suffering as a form of punishment? Like, do you think paying for a fire department is punishment? You've already said that you aren't responsible for systemic racism. What do you think this is punishment for? This framing of punishment suggests that you see taxation as a form of punishment when it is in fact the cost of a civilization. Why is it that whenever it comes to helping people who need it most, we suddenly need to tighten the purse strings, but the government has no problem signing on to defense bills in the hundreds of billions of dollars or sending trillions of dollars to prop up Wall Street after its latest tumble? This keeps capitalism on life support for yet another generation. But this characterization of social safety nets and reparations stems from a mixture of intellectual dishonesty and an appeal to emotion. It's poisoning the discourse and is easily rebutted.
Rioting never solves anything.
Rioting founded this country. Quite literally. The Boston Massacre was the then equivalent of a widely publicized act of police brutality, except that then it was at the hands of British soldiers. The resulting Boston Tea Party was a mass destruction of property meant to send a message to the wealthy ruling elite. This was a riot that escalated to a full-on war, which we won. Rioting gets attention. That's kind of the point. I am very suspect of someone suggesting that protests have to remain peaceful, even in the face of consistently documented brutality at the hands of law enforcement. The implication being that the onus is on a marginalized people to maintain civility, repress their anger and emotions, and continue to use methods that don't make the white moderates uncomfortable, all the while continuing to be dehumanized at the hands of the state with little to no accountability. You say violence is never the answer. I say maybe for you. But when we had professional athletes peacefully demonstrate, you told them to shut up and play. When actors and entertainers expressed their solidarity, you told them to sit down and stay in their lane. When we marched, you made up curfews out of thin air and then gassed us because you've got it in your head that city ordinances trump constitutional rights. So tell me, what is the answer? What will get your attention? What will change your mind? Change the system. What form of protest do you deem socially acceptable that won't be ignored? If violence isn't the answer, also, tell the cops to knock it off.
BLM, Antifa are terrorists.
Well, this betrays a certain level of willful ignorance on current issues. Antifa is not a group or organization. Antifa is not something you are or something you belong to. It is something you do. There is no membership, dues, or leadership. Any organization is extremely loose and decentralized by design. There is no defining ideology beyond confronting fascism and taking direct action against it where it exists to stop it. There is a diversity of political beliefs among those practicing anti-fascist action, and it takes many forms. Some anti-fascist action may be to mask up and take to the streets for 100 straight days of protest, of extrajudicial slaughter at the hands of the state. It could also include reconnaissance, infiltration, and surveillance. It can also be as simple as providing support to those on the front lines in the form of food, shelter, and medical aid. There may be some acts of property damage or physical violence as Antifa, but it serves to strike against a fascist power structure. But remember that in order to be acts of terrorism, they have to be centered around a political or religious ideology. And as I stated earlier, Antifa doesn't involve a specific ideology beyond stopping fascism. If the idea of preventing fascism strikes fear and terror into your heart, you should consider what side you're on. BLM, or Black Lives Matter, is a decentralized civil rights movement that has founders and loosely organized groups, but largely exists as a social justice movement, independent of specific ideologies. By calling them terrorists, you are suggesting that they are attempting to push a specific ideological goal through acts of violence. So what is this terrifying idea that they are trying to force on the American people? Oh wait, they just want black people's lives to matter equally. Seems odd to use the same politically charged language to describe them that we use for white supremacists who shoot up synagogues and churches, or the violent religious extremists who bomb civilians. Let's rethink this framing.
You're burning down your own communities.
This shows the source of your logic. If this is your argument, which is inaccurate, but I'll get to that, then you have made it clear that you are, to a certain degree, driven by greed and warped priorities. To hold this stance, you must value your property over the lives of others. I understand if you do. The religious adherence to property rights is a core tenet of neoliberal capitalism, and multiple generations have been thoroughly indoctrinated in it. And you are wrong. Here's the thing. Out of the hundreds of verifiably peaceful protests, some insured buildings and businesses have been damaged or destroyed. Some of them by white supremacist agitators, some of them by demonstrators. But if you do a little digging, you'll see that in most of these situations, it's not really a loss to the black community in these areas. And the sad truth is because most of the black communities in major cities across the country own very little of the businesses or property in their community. Going back all the way from Black Wall Street in Tulsa to MOVE in Philadelphia to the interstate highway systems to redlining to the mismanagement of the Freedmen's Bank to outright housing discrimination, black wealth tends to be hard to come by, even in communities largely populated by black residents. For generations, black Americans have been literally blocked from attaining generational wealth in the form of buying land or property, to the point where the median net worth for a black resident in Boston is $8 compared to $170,000 for a white resident. A dollar spent in a black neighborhood tends to leave that neighborhood in a matter of hours, if not minutes. Money funnels out of black neighborhoods and residents and fills the pockets of white investors and corporations. So I ask you, how much should a black neighborhood care about protecting the exploitative systems in their own backyards when they have no say in the financial opportunities afforded to them and have been historically blocked from amassing any form of their own generational wealth? So when I see a big box retail store in a black community not serving it, but instead siphoning off its wealth to some corporate trust, or a used car lot extorting the community with predatory loans getting set on fire, I don't mourn the loss of brick and mortar. I understand. I understand using whatever means are left at one's disposal to strike back at the symbols of oppression in a community. And this does apply to statues as well.
There are no racist laws.
While it may be tempting to see this as an innocent mistake, this argument is one of the more insidious and malicious ways that they will try to shut down the conversation or in the argument. They'll say, "Show me a racist law," implying that there needs to be a racist law for racism, even systemic racism, to still exist. This shows a willful misunderstanding of the difference between de jure and de facto. De jure institutional racism comes from a place of racist laws, i.e. Jim Crow, the Three-Fifths Compromise. However, de facto racism is racism that comes about as an effect of non-racist laws, essentially is functionally a racist system. So you can have things like mandatory minimums, stop and frisk, broken windows policing. These things are not drafted and documented to be specifically racist. However, nonetheless, the effect is that blacks will be impacted disproportionately by these elements. These arguments leave me tired and stressed. They aren't even that difficult to rebut. They don't exist to foster conversation or seek out explanation on tricky topics. Know that when you see someone using these arguments, their whole purpose is to shut down the conversation entirely, defeat you in a war of attrition by making sure that you have been worn down by too much fatigue to continue fighting. But if you are able to, don't give them the satisfaction. Never give ground. Never let them go unchallenged. I am tired but not done fighting, broken but unbowed, and I'm going to keep fighting with you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please click the thumbs up and the subscribe button and the little bell to catch more videos. Oh, and let me know in the comments any other tiring arguments that you hear surrounding these issues. Follow me on Twitch, where I stream games, work on songs like the one you're listening to, and give the occasional lecture. Follow me on Twitter, where I can tell you why your favorite anime is bad, and no, I will not read the manga. And if you'd like to help me make future videos, I do have a Patreon. Thanks again.